What's up guys, this is Scher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the SaGa Soul Paul Banner that brings Paul as a support and debuffer to the squad, Armic, an SGR and intelligence debuffer for very high values, and Rose, support for remembrance that can also increase damage for guns. Let's go straight out to our srs.xyz website, starting with Paul. This guy has 105% endurance and will. Those are okay values for a support character. 122% dexterity and 98% agility. This value here matters a little, and he does have 105% intelligence, although he does not really rely on intelligence to debuff. He has a special mechanic. Well, he starts the fight feeling all overdrive gauges for everyone, and then he gives a 50% increase for overdrive damage for everyone. That's already pretty interesting for a character that is a debuffer. By the end of a turn, he gives 15 points of OG gauge for everyone, another support. And then, when he lands an attack, he always chases with main and volley. That is an AoE attack with very low damage. It's just deep power. Has a chance to debuff the enemy agility. This is related to his intelligence. But debuffing agility is not really all necessary. And it has a chance to stun. That also relies on intelligence. But stun will be useful on the next Remembrance fight and versus Kazinsi for old challenges. Now, on overdrive attack, he gets this steal 2 times for all surviving allies, but we'll be talking more about that in a few. On the start of a turn, he grants all enemies an attack down that will decrease their attack damage by 5% for that turn. And then he will also grant all surviving allies a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15%. So even though he's a debuffer, he has ways to decrease damage taken via passive. Then he recovers 2 EP, so he is a 5p per turn character. He then increases his damage by 40% and reduces damage taken by 30%. Now, the first skill, Daring Arrow, is a single target attack that can buff his dexterity before attacking by 25% and then launches an attack. It's something that you should use when you don't have enough BP. Because you want to use skill 2 or 3. We have Steel Shot, V or H. Column or roll attack, and before attacking grants all surviving allies steal 2 times. This is the same thing that he gets when he attacks on overdrive, and it's his main gameplay mechanic. Steal is a passive that when you are landing an attack, you will activate the following. If you are using a single target attack for one enemy, if you are using a row attack for all enemies aligned in a row, or AoE, then it will reduce the enemy's SGR, endurance, dexterity, intelligence, and will. As you can see, those are all offensive and defensive status besides agility and love and charisma. We don't need to debuff love or charisma for enemies, so we are debuffing damage from all sources besides MRs that will also need agility. Then we will also buff our status by 5%. This is to self. 5% is not that high. Same values does not buff agility. Since it can trigger 2 times in a fight, that can reach 10%. Then all the enemies that get hit by the attack will receive a defense down that will decrease their defenses by 10%. And the character that uses Steel will also grant a self-defense boost that will decrease damage taken by 10%, lasts for 1 turn. So you can get 2 defense boosts as well. Okay, so this is interesting because, well, you will use this skill before you attack. So you always chase with Poe. If Poe is your fastest attacker, he would then provide the same passives to all your other 4 characters. And if they have 1 chase attack, you can do the math. He will debuff 10% and all the other ones will also debuff 10%. And that does not rely on intelligence. They will always debuff. There are some problems with this type of situation. First, his agility is not that high, 98%. We shall compare him now to other characters that have similar mechanics, like J-Mew. He's actually the closest. He has 115% agility, much higher. J-Mew will distribute his debuffs randomly to other characters via thievery knowledge, and sometimes he may not give it to someone that can attack again, so it can break. But, well, for very hard challenges, you only need to clear once, and if something really terrible happens, you can still debuff, at least usually the needed to not get inflicted with ailments. J-Mew does debuff agility, contrary to Poe. And J-Mew also gives attack defense boosts randomly. You cannot decide which character gets it. There is also Acelus that has interesting mechanic, but she only debuffs SGR and intelligence via her Impale Union. And she also has lower agility. 8 for Paul, 102% for Asylus. So Paul has the lowest agility, even though he has a fast attack. Asylus also has a fast attack. The problem is that many characters have fast attack and they can still attack before Asylus and before Paul. But okay, depends on your formation. You can sometimes just use a character that can be used on the front line. Like for example, you can place Paul on a Rising King or Rising Phoenix formation in the slot that increases agility. Imperial Cross EX also has one slot that increases agility. It's the center one. You can also use Paul there. And people like Leon that has fast skill you can place on the back lane. And that will usually work, but not always. You just have to understand that. But if your characters have a chase attack and Paul goes first, you can debuff as much as 50% for all status. Since he gets 5 PP per turn and he uses an 8 PP skill, this is also the cheapest one when compared to Jamil and Asylus. So Jamil actually has a different type of mechanic. He doesn't really rely so much on PP, because it is when landing in an attack he uses Chivalry Knowledge. But you can also use Ice Steel, that is a 10 BP attack that debuffs intelligence even further. But Jamie really does not really need intelligence all the time, and he will be debuffing no matter the BP cost. Asylus has to use a Pricer skill that has 10 BP cost. So Paul is cheap, and it's easy to get 3 BP. If you use him together with an US list or with Leon, you're gonna have enough BP. So he does give more than Asylus and Jamil because of attack down, defense boost, overdrive damage boost, and he also fills all overdrive gauges on the start of the fight. So there is a lot of utility for this character. And when you are on overdrive and then you attack, you can get as much as 95% debuff. Because when you attack, you trigger, and then your chase attack will be debuffing 15% total, considering the first attack, and then all the other characters in your party can debuff as much as 20% if they attack at least twice, and you can reach 95% debuff for all those status. Since he also gives OG points for everyone, he is actually pretty easy to reach overdrive, usually every 2 turns. So debuffs are good enough, and he covers almost everything. Paul is a really useful unit. I failed to pull for him, and I don't have any of these 3 ones, but I have to say that his level of support is prime. I consider him to be a 5 out of 5 because he's one of the best debuffers in the game, and even though he's not really always better than Asylus or Jamil, he's on the same levels, and they are really, really good. The next character will be Rose, and she has 105% endurance, 113% will, and very low dexterity. See, 113 and 105% agility. She is not here for damage, she's here actually for support and even healing, so her healing is pretty high. On the start of a battle, she will give a 50% damage increase for everyone that uses guns. Yes, lock it into remembrance for when you can make a full gun squad. Super hard for hard challenges. Then she also grants all surviving allies this Rose Supply. If they are equipped with a gun, they will get 25 points of OG Gauge by the end of a turn and also recover their HP. Super useful for remembrance. And then she also casts Sister's Yell. If they are equipped with a gun, they will buff their own status by 15% on the start of a turn and also get 3 VP. That's really useful. This is something that you can also find on elemental strategies. Remember Saruin? Saruin allows you to get 3 VP when you are using shadow attacks. And he also improves damage. He also allows people to self-buff. No, Firebringer does. So it's kind of part of those setups, but for weapons instead of elements. Makes total sense. But Rose becomes hard to use since we don't have a wide variety of gunners like we do have for swords, for example. So in Remembrance, perfect, not reliable anywhere else unless you have a big roster, and even then hard. On the start of a turn, she will then cast an attack boost and defense boost of 15% just for that turn for everyone. This does not rely on being a gunner. If she gets to 0 HP, she will then recover the HP of everyone by 3000. That's right. But you don't want her to die. This is something that may happen or not. She then also has Super Strong Guard that when attacked, damage taken will be reduced by 30%, and then when all allies are still alive, decreases damage taken for everyone by 30%, and then increases damage by 10% as well. So one damage reduction passive that works for everyone if they are alive, and then another defense boost for everyone, and then she also allows them to self-heal, self-buff, get extra BP, and improve their damage. Then we have skill number 1, called Junk Pocket. This one is support, and it will recover 2 BP for everyone, including bros, and heal their HP. She already allows them to self-heal if they are using guns, so in this turn she will be healing 2 times, and that will be around 800 HP because her healings are high. The second skill is called Cal Rose Plus. It's support fast for all allies. She will cast a Guard Up Large that decreases damage taken by 35%, lasts for 2 turns and cannot stack, and then buffs Endurance, Will, Love, and Charisma by up to 40% on max level. For 8 PP, pretty nice, and she can cycle skill 2 and 1 perfectly because she has extra 3 BP since she uses a gun, so that is 6 per turn. And she uses 3 but recovers 2, so you can keep cycling these skills, and then eventually you may even have enough BP to use skill number 3, that is called All Out Team Strike. It's a single target attack with blunt and heat, attacks 3 times, and then grants the enemy a defense down medium that will decrease their defenses by 25% for each hit, lasts for 2 turns. So that will be around 75% defense down. When you look on the description, it doesn't make sense. You don't see that happening. But I tested and it's 3 defense downs. Much like Charles' description that also does not explain that part. Damage will be terrible, but she will increase the damage output of your characters. If you don't need the extra VP and healing because your character's already getting a lot, you can cycle Call Rose Plus and Out Team Strike if you have other BP batteries. Rose combos super well with Human Male if you got the guy. And they together are usually what you need to beat Megalith Dragon, alongside a good counter, but can even be an average one like Socho. Remember that Human Male can also heal you with his chase attack in every 3 turns, allowing you to have a lot of defenses and healing with the combination of those 2 characters. If you are finishing the enemy, use skill number 3 and Leon will do more damage. Leon is usually the best damage dealer for guns anyway. And we will get lots of Emerald Beyond Gunners in the near future, and maybe possibly we'll be able to make a full Gunner squad. But even then, it's really nothing important. It is super hard to grade Rose because she was made for Remembrance fights, and some people don't care about Remembrance fights. So I would say that she deserves a 3.5 out of 5, because she's good, but really hard to use, block it mostly to Remembrance. Moving on, the last character will be Armic, and this guy is a male character from Unlimited Saga, 100% Endurance and Will, those are just average values for today's standards, 135% Agility, 98 STR, and 100 Intelligence. Nothing here really high besides Agility. Moving on, he has a 30% damage increase at all times. When attacked, damage will be reduced by 30%. On the start of a turn, buffs STR and Agility by 25% each, very nice. Also gets a heat up of 20% every turn, reaching 100%, so total damage potential will be 130%. When landing an attack, will self-recover HP and BP, grant the enemy a defense down that decreases damage, that decreases defenses by 10%, lasts for 2 turns and stack. Will always debuff the enemy STR by 10% as well. Also, when landing an attack, we'll chase with skill 1 and then skill 3. This was changing on global and it's actually pretty interesting. Skill 1, it's called Air Fist. It's a roll attack that when the attack lands, has a chance to debuff STR and Intelligence by 10% as a chase or by 15% as a command. As a command, it costs 3 BP, has C power. Damage is not important with Armic. It's all about the debuff values, and since he will also be debuffing via passive, debuffs STR by 20% and Intelligence by 10% when talking about chases. And then skill number 3 is 10 BP attack. When used as command, will debuff STR and Intelligence by 20%, as a chase 15%, alongside buff breaking the enemy STR and Intelligence buffs. This is important because many bosses will keep buffing themselves in order to do more damage to you, And intelligence is also the status used to apply ailments and have high debuff chances. So many situations you will not need an extra buff breaker, but there are bosses that like to buff agility as well, and if they keep buffing that, you will have to bring other types of buff breakers, since you will not be able to land attacks. But see that when you combine skill number 1 and skill number 3, you are going to debuff 45% SGR and 25% intelligence, whatever you do, even a normal attack. But then if you use skill number 1, 2, or 3, you can add the values of the skill as command to debuff even further. Unless my calculations are wrong, if you use skill number 1, you can debuff as much as 70% SGR and 40% intelligence to a row area. If you use skill number 3, you can debuff 75% SGR and 45% intelligence, alongside buff breaking a row area for SGR and intelligence. You can see that you don't get too much by just using skill 3 besides the buff break, since you get a lot from the chase attacks. There is also skill number 2, where you can debuff 15% agility, but keep the same debuff values as skill 1, 70 SGR, 40% intelligence. So very high values, so pretty high values, and Armic is actually very similar to James, but better. James does have double elemental attacks, he is slash and pierce, while Armic is just blunt. And James has SGR dexterity and intelligence buff when he's attacking alongside attack boosts. He also enters overdrive faster and has another attack on overdrive. On overdrive, James can do as much as 75% SGR debuff and as much as 30% intelligence debuff. He does more damage, but I don't think it matters when you are bringing a debuffer. James has similar intelligence, and that means that they may still need buffers to debuff very special enemies with high will, unlike Paul, Acelus, and Jamil. Okay, so both are good, and in my opinion, Armic is better, since you can debuff even higher values with lower BP cost, and they are still not the best types of debuffers, because they rely on intelligence, but if they work, they work. Armic also brings buff break, so he is even better than James. I was really torn about the 3.5 or a 4 grade because his debuffs are really high, but since we got so many debuffers in the game right now, he doesn't feel special, so 3.5 is my final say. He is still easier to skip than both Rose and Paul. With all that said, is this banner worth pulling for? In my opinion, yes, but it also depends if you have gens, because we are getting very good banners now. We saw they announcing the SaGa the Stage banners with the new protects, and Paul is much better if you skip it, Acelus or Jamil. If you have, then you have a reason to skip here if you don't care about Remembrance. Rose helps, but we're gonna get lots of gun units in the future, and if you can wait to beat Megalith Dragon or other Remembrance fights, you can also wait for other styles. But I think this banner deserves a silver playing award, so there's some value here. But this is my opinion. What is yours? Say here in the comment section. I pull it, one single pull got Rose and drop it off the banner. I don't have Jamil or Acelus. Have to skip Paul now because I don't want to go for a PT yet again. You cannot pull on all banners, so make your decision based on that. So that's the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I see you soon in the next video. Bye.